We'll begin by hearing from Dr. Mildred Solomon. Dr. Solomon is president of the Hastings Center and clinical professor of anesthesia at Harvard Medical School, where she directs the school's fellowship in medical ethics. Prior to assuming the leadership of the Hastings Center, Dr. Solomon was senior director of implementation science at the Association of American Medical Colleges, and before that, she was vice president of the Education Development Center. Dr. Solomon has founded or led many educational programs in bioethics, including a project funded by the National Institutes of Health that developed and pilot tested a high school bioethics curriculum. She has served on committees of the National Academies of Science, was a member of the U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services Advisory Committee on Organ Transplantation, consults to numerous foundations and government agencies, and I have to say, we are very pleased to welcome you, Dr. Solomon.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm very appreciative of this opportunity to address the Commission. And I've taken your charge to me as addressing the question of how should neuroscientists be educated about the ethical aspects of their work. But I'm going to respond to that question both with respect to neuroscience and also with respect to the preparation of scientists working in other areas of national importance. The U.S. is a leader in the preparation of scientists. We have an elaborate and high-quality infrastructure to produce Ph.D.s in both the basic and applied sciences. U.S. institutions of higher education remain a mecca for training in science and education, and science and engineering. And yet, our ability to prepare scientists to consider the societal and ethical implications of their work is only in its infancy. So far, most bioethics education has focused either on the responsible conduct of research, which aims to prevent misconduct, which is thankfully a rare event, or on research ethics. I think a continuing focus on research ethics is critical. So that's a very important goal. But we've done very little in a third area, in helping scientists think about the very compelling questions about how our society should be using and managing its technological prowess. So that's what I want to focus on in my remarks, this third area. I think we have an opportunity and arguably an obligation to engage scientists in explorations of the ethical and social implications of their work, particularly given the wide array of ethical issues that neuroscience and neurotechnologies will raise. So neuroscientists particularly should have the capacity to anticipate the societal impact of their discoveries, and they should be socialized during their training years to see the merit in this. I'm going to take just a second to pause over that assertion. Why? Why should we focus on scientists? You know, some might argue that that's not the business of scientists, that we have philosophers and bioethicists and ordinary citizens and religious leaders who should do this. So I'm going to pause and propose 4 reasons, and I'm sure there are many more that we might want to talk about. But for me, the things that seem most urgent are, first of all, by definition, scientists are a kind of professional. And by definition, professionals think about the ends of their work. They think about the purposes to which their labor is devoted. And that's what makes them professional rather than technicians. So almost by definition, this should be a part of scientist education. There we go. Okay. A second reason is that given the power of science and technology in our society, bioethics education can cultivate humility and self-reflection. And I think that's an important attitude and stance that we want to see in our scientists. That would mean basic bioethics literacy and familiarity with historical examples of when science has lost its way, like Guatemala or the worldwide eugenics movement. These can be correctives for scientific hubris. A third reason is that scientists are best positioned to constrain hyperbole by others. They have the credibility to say what both the promise and the limits of their work is. Now, think about this in genomics, for example. I would argue that geneticists are the best people to talk about or try to correct statements that overemphasize genetic determinism and underemphasize the social determinants of behavior. So likewise, neuroscientists are best positioned to clarify that just because there are locations in the brain that are activated during moral problem solving, that doesn't mean that education and social role modeling play no role in how humans develop the ability to reason morally. A third reason is that bioethicists and scientists need one another. They need to do this together. Normative analysis cannot proceed without an accurate understanding of the research and technologies under examination. I mean, it's just obvious that without good knowledge of the science and the technologies, ethical critiques can make two kinds of errors. They can overestimate the likely harms, but they can also miss problems. So there needs to be close engagement. And the opposite is true too. Scientists can't really do that close engagement and engage with bioethicists unless they've developed the ability to discriminate between ethical and normative questions or help to cultivate the moral imagination to anticipate the effects of their work. And then the fifth reason I'll put forward is that the very diversity of our nation, our pluralism, requires that we develop a shared secular way to examine moral questions. This is particularly true for two reasons. There's an increasing number of young postdoctoral researchers who have been foreign trained and come with widely different religious and cultural perspectives. And the second reason is that neuroscience itself raises fundamental questions about what it means to be human and our concepts of responsibility, blame, intentionality. These are issues that religions of the world have addressed for millennia. And therefore, we need to have a secular way that people coming from these diverse sectors can talk about these issues. In the time remaining, I'm going to try to address a set of quick questions about, okay, these are the reasons why, but what kind of bioethics should we aim for? And I want to introduce a phrase. I'm going to argue that we want transformational learning. So what do I mean by transformational learning? Transformational learning is not just about cognitive learning. It's not just about critical analytic skills, which of course are very, very important, but also about habits of mind, attitudes, and dispositions. Learning is transformational when it is not only about acquiring content, but it's about, it changes the learner in some kind of profound way. And so in my view, we should be designing learning experiences likely to result in scientists who are more fully engaged as reflective, thoughtful, and deliberative persons who are affected as persons with the habits of mind and dispositions that we want to cultivate. I'm also using the word learning. Notice I'm avoiding the word training. The habits of mind, attitudes, and dispositions that bioethics cultivates are not capacities that can be trained into people, but I do think they can be cultivated. And I've also avoided the term education. Sometimes it crops up, but we should be more interested in designing for learning than in educating. Educating is too unidirectional. It implies that someone is doing something to someone else. It assumes an expert operating on a novice. Learning, on the other hand, is far more active. Learning is something you do for yourself. And you'll see in the suggestions that I'm going to end with, they are all about enabling people to learn for themselves in a virtuous cycle of asking questions, seeking answers with colleagues and peers, and asking more questions. So transformational learning is self-directed, but it is also very much shaped by, it's socially constructed and shaped by peers in very unconscious ways that have to do with how early career professionals are socialized. And again, in the suggestions I'm going to make, the process of socialization and the social construction of knowledge is a theme that you'll see. Learning for whom? I don't think all scientists need to develop the same levels of expertise, just as we expect all scientists to understand probabilistic reasoning and statistics. We don't expect them all to be statisticians. So in my written remarks, which I know I'm going to have to refer people to, I've talked about a two-tiered approach: basic bioethics literacy for PhDs and postgraduates, and deeper engagement for those who want to go further. And what would some strategies be? My written remarks talk about 6 areas that we could do for deeper engagement. An LC program for brain science, the establishment of a learning community for all the scientists across the country involved in brain science, an annual symposium, a bioethics intensive workshop experience for brain scientists, a survey that can be used in multiple ways that I'm happy to describe under questions and answers, and encouraging the brain awardee institutions to build ethics capacities to address normative questions right into their grant work. So I'm happy to describe those in more detail in the question and answers. I have 14 seconds left. Here's the summary. Brain science is an important context. Education should be challenging, and it will be challenging because there's so many disciplines. 3 areas: let's not train or even educate, but rather design for transformational learning.
Thank you very much. And your list is going to be very helpful to us. So we will read your remarks, but also follow up on that.